I'm Zakiya Summers. I serve as State Representative for House District 68, which comprises portions of Hinds and Rankin counties, specifically West Jackson and the cities of Pearl, portions of the cities of Pearl, Richland, and Flowood. So I have the honor and privilege of representing District 68 in the Mississippi House of Representatives, and I'm really going to be focused on issues that impact my community directly. Two of those issues that constituents have discussed with me are one, safety, public safety, and two, infrastructure/blight elimination. And so we're going to prioritize how we can increase security measures throughout the district, as well as rid our communities of some of the dilapidated housing properties that litter our community, which is also a public safety issue because as those houses go down, they become havens for bad behavior, sometimes crime, and things that we don't want to see in our communities. And so we're really going to be focused on how we can continue to improve our communities, primarily in the West Jackson area, because we are dealing with not only private individuals who own dilapidated properties and are not taking care of them, but we're also dealing with a long list of tax forfeited properties that sit within the Secretary of State's office. And so the Secretary of State currently does not have the authority nor the funding to do anything about maintaining those properties. And so we're going to tackle that. Now, on a state level, I think we're going to see several big bucket issues be prioritized this session. One, of course, will be Medicaid expansion. We don't know what that language is going to look like. We went pretty far last session. We really progressed on Medicaid expansion last session, but unfortunately we were not able to get it across the finish line because of some of the language that was in there that provided for a work requirement that we knew the Center of Medicaid Services would not approve. Now we have a new administration that's going to be coming in a couple of weeks. And so we'll see what our Medicaid expansion legislation is going to look like. Some other big bucket issues are going to be education reform in the form of school vouchers, or what some folks call school choice. I think we'll also see some legislation around fully eliminating the income tax. We may see some other legislation that deals with our retirement system. And the speaker provided for several select committees over the summer that focused on capital revitalization, which also dealt with blight, the homeless population. We also saw a committee around pharmacy benefit managers, so we should see legislation on that, as well as the CON, which is the Certificate of Need law, repealing some of that to allow the opening of more healthcare facilities in areas that are in deep need. I'm certainly going to be putting my energy towards ways that we can improve our parks and recreation in the city of Jackson. We hear story after story about how our young people don't have anything to do in the city of Jackson, and that could be contributing to our crime rate. And I think that if we had facilities in the city that provided our young people with things to do, like when I was growing up, then we can help to curb some of that in the city of Jackson. So we're going to look at how we can provide some funding that will assist our Parks and Recreation Department with improving parks. We're also going to look at how we can work with the county on eliminating some blight across the city. I'm really concerned about the increase in blight in the city of Jackson, because not only does that contribute to crime, but it also hurts our opportunities in attracting economic development. And we need economic development in the city of Jackson in order to provide jobs for people who live here so that they can have a good quality of life. There are two other projects. One of them is not directly in my district, but very close. And the other one is directly in my district. The first one is the Metro Center. The Metro Center has been sitting idle for a number of years. I believe there may be one tenant in there that has a film productions company. But we need to have a serious conversation and take a look at what's possible for the Metro Center. And so what I intend on proposing this session is forming some type of task force or commissioning a study that would determine what can happen and what should happen with the Metro Center. Because right now it is a tax forfeited property, so it sits within the Secretary of State's office. The other major facility, of course, is the Jackson Zoo on Capitol Street, and it is in District 68, and it is an asset of District 68. We would like to keep the zoo in West Jackson, but it needs a lot of improvement. Attendance has declined over the years. They're not making enough money to cover expenditures. The city of Jackson is not providing the level of funding that's needed. And so it needs some supplemental support. So we're going to be working with the community to determine how best we move forward with the Jackson Zoo. And then I said two projects, but I also want to mention Jackson State. And shout out to Jackson State, national champs. We're so very proud of the Tigers, Go Blue. And I'm very proud to have Jackson State University in District 68. It is a huge asset to our community. But Jackson State also has many needs. One of the biggest needs is housing. Jackson State does not have a problem with recruiting students. There are students from all over the country that want to come to Jackson State. The issue is retaining those students because they don't have anywhere to live. And so we will continue to advocate and lobby for appropriations that assist Jackson State with infrastructure improvements and housing and making sure that Jackson State remains the shining gem that it is in our community. So there is, I believe, there will be an effort to do some type of education funding reform. Now, last year during the 2024 session, we totally revamped the school funding formula. So we no longer have the Mississippi Adequate Education Program. What we have is a totally different funding formula that provides more funding to schools based on the different weights. And the weights can be if they have English language learners, if they have students that are on free and reduced lunch, if the school is located in a poverty-stricken community. There are certain weights that determines how much money that they get in addition to the student-based cost per pupil. My concern is that, did we change that formula just so that we can reroute that money to private schools? And the reason why I raised that concern and raised that question is because the leadership, particularly our leadership in the House, has been advocating for school vouchers. School vouchers would take the state appropriations that goes to MDE and then funnels to local public schools. It would take that pot of money, and it would basically allow a parent to choose which school they want their child to go to. And so if the parent wants to send their child to a private school, then that funding would follow that child to that private school. Now, I believe that parents should certainly be able to make the best choice for their children's education. I have 3 sons. All 3 of my sons are students in Jackson Public Schools. And we work with the administration on the district level and the school level to ensure that children get what they need. And we try to be strong advocates in the state legislature to assist all of our public school districts. But we also have to keep in mind that we have charter schools here in the state of Mississippi, which siphons those precious taxpayer dollars away from our public schools into charter schools. And now if we're going to expand that to school vouchers, we truly could see the dismantling of public education in the state of Mississippi. And I haven't been able to get an answer to the question of what happens to the public schools if the money is sent to private schools. So there's some things that we're going to have to keep in mind should this legislation, grow some legs and runs and build some momentum. One thing is, are the rules and the standards going to be the same? There are standards that public schools have to meet in order for them to comply with statute and receive the funding from the state. So if that funding is going to leave the public school and go to a private institution or a homeschool situation, then the standards and the rules should also apply to those institutions to make sure that it's fair and equitable. The other thing is public schools have to ensure that they have some type of alternative school setting for children that may have some behavioral issues or need some remedial education for them to be able to matriculate through school. Private schools may or may not have the capacity or facilities to do that. So what happens to those children? Do they get kicked out of the private school when they have bad behavior? Then where do they go? If they are to return to public schools, then that money should also follow that child back to the public schools. Then there's transportation. What I'm hearing is that transportation is not going to be included in any kind of school voucher legislation, this particular education reform. Well, that means that if a parent is depending on school buses to get their child to and from school, but they decide to leave that public school system and put them in a private school, they will now be responsible for making sure that that child gets to that school and is picked up from that school. There will be no assistance for that. So that means that particularly children who are from low-income communities are going to be put in a situation where they may or may not have accessibility to even get to school because transportation will no longer be provided. And then the last thing is what we've seen in other states that have expanded the school voucher system is that these funds primarily go to private school students who are already in private schools, which are generally your higher income families that don't need a voucher in order to go to school. And so we need to make sure that we have some type of income limitations on who is able to qualify for a school voucher. Because if it's really about making sure that students from low-income families have a state-of-the-art education, which is what they're proclaiming in their advocacy efforts around this legislation, then we need to make sure that the money is targeted towards those individuals. And at the same time, making sure that our public schools are not put in such a disparate situation that they end up closing. And we know what school closures can do to communities because we're experiencing that right now in the city of Jackson with, I think, some 12 or 13 schools that closed last year. So there's going to be a lot of debate around that. And I want to encourage the viewers to pay attention, get in touch with your legislator, get in touch with the speaker, the lieutenant governor, and the governor. Let them know how you feel about this school voucher situation. Here's the last thing I say about this. A couple of years ago, we passed a teacher pay raise. But what we're hearing from educators is that the pay raise was almost for naught because the insurance is so high that they haven't been able to really realize that increase in income. So, folks are still talking about they need more money for teachers. What happens to those teachers? What happens to those custodial staff? What happens to those bus drivers? What happens to all the support staff in public schools if money is siphoned off from those public schools and taken to private schools? We could see, a high jump in unemployment if we touch our public schools in some of these communities that have no private schools or have no other educational institutions in close proximity for those children to go. So it's something we definitely have to keep a watch on. So what I'm looking to propose again this session, and I was successful 2 sessions ago, which would have been 2023, in getting some appropriations that were sent to the county to install security cameras in West Jackson. So we're going to replicate that effort and again put in a request for more security cameras funding would go to the county, and we would put those cameras in high traffic, high crime areas should it be approved. We also now have, as a result of House Bill 1020, we have Capitol Police, and we have a new court system that is being developed that will be dedicated towards CCID. What that means is that the Capitol Police officers who are arresting individuals won't have to send those individuals to the county court. They will have their own court system to take those individuals to. We have seen an increase as a result of Capitol Police coming into the city of Jackson. We've seen an increase in arrests. And what that means is that you also increase the workload for your public defenders. Well, we have one county public defender office, one public defender attorney, and I believe she has maybe 2 assistants. Her workload has quadrupled as a result of Capitol Police arrests. And so we know that in order for us to curb some of this crime and improve public safety, we got to make sure that our court system is working efficiently and effectively. And so we're looking at a proposal on how we can request some additional dollars that would go towards the CCID in order to increase our public defender's office so that individuals have access to equitable representation, and we can get those cases handled on an efficient basis so that we don't continue to have what they call, or what's a so-called backlog in the court system. So those are 2 things that we're working through the state. We've also received several requests from the city of Jackson for funds that would help them purchase new police vehicles, funds that would improve their security systems. And so those proposals will be coming through the pipeline as well. It is truly a blessing to have the opportunity to represent District 68 in the House of Representatives. And although I represent just that little corner of the state, I'm a state representative. And so I say that I represent any constituent in the state of Mississippi. And what I am always motivated by are the young people. As I stated earlier, I am the mother of 3 sons, and I often have an opportunity to talk to young people, whether it's in their classroom, whether it's at a community event or function. And when they say, Miss Summers, we saw you doing X, Y, and Z. We heard that you said X, Y, and Z. We appreciate you fighting on our behalf when it comes to issues that impact the city of Jackson. Those are the kinds of things that motivate me, because here's the deal. I don't plan on being in this seat forever and a day. There's going to be an opportunity where I will need to succeed this position to someone else. And so I'm constantly working with young people. I'm constantly working with college students who serve as my interns, exposing them to the policymaking process, teaching them civics, teaching them about how government works, showing them the difference that they can make and how they can become a change agent, even as a young person before they even become qualified to vote. And so that's the thing that really, really motivates me. I have been in so many rooms where young people continue to impress me. I know we often hear stories about how, young people are causing trouble or they're doing negative things. And, there are some instances of that. Of course, we see that on the news. But I guarantee you there are way more young people in the city of Jackson that love themselves, that have self-respect, that believe that they can do something to create the change that they want to seek. And so we have to continue to mold that and guide them in the right direction. So I'm certainly motivated by that. And then you said, what's the one thing that I could do to improve the city of Jackson?
What is your role in shaping Mississippi's future?
So my role as a state legislator is my primary functions are to create policy. is to create laws that help to improve the quality of life for Mississippians. That's one function. The second function is I'm an appropriator, which means that I play a role in determining what happens with the state budget. But more than that, just my functions of what the Constitution says that I'm required to do as a state legislator, I am tasked and charged with being a role model. I am tasked and charged with making sure that I'm leading with love and that I am doing all that I can with the gifts, skills, and talents that God has bestowed on me to help somebody else. It's not just enough to sit in a position and say, and check a box and say, well, I did my functions, but I'm responsible for something much bigger than that. And I know that, I understand what my assignment is. And I work every day to try to fulfill that assignment, whether I'm in the Capitol or not. And so that's what I would encourage people to do. Our young people are watching us. They're watching us every day. And they want to replicate, they admire what we do. And some of it can be negative things. Some of it can be positive things. And so what we have to do as adults, particularly people who are in elected positions, is to remember and reflect on the fact that there's somebody else that's watching us. And we want to give them a good impression and show them the way, just like how people showed us the way. If it wasn't for my mentors, Mr. and Mrs. Credell, Calhoun, I would never be in politics. If it wasn't for my parents and my second grade teacher, Ms. Montag at Davis Magnet, which is now Obama Magnet, telling my mother, look, it's something in this young lady. You need to pay attention. You really need to nurture that. You know, it's people in our communities that see things in us. And so we have to be the ones now to see things in young people and nurture them to where they need to be and guide them in the right direction. The reason why the city of Jackson is in the situation it is in is because we got people in position that's just holding on to positions. They're not using their position to leverage it in order to help somebody else. There's no way in the world that we should have the number of churches we have in the city of Jackson, that we should have the number of African-American elected officials in the city of Jackson, that we should have the number of Black entrepreneurs in the city of Jackson, the number of Black-led institutions in the city of Jackson, and it to be in the shape that we're in. So Jackson, we got to do better. We have got to do better. And we got to do better because the next generation is depending on us to do better. So I'm motivated by that. And I know we got plenty of work to do. And here's the deal. There's enough work for all of us. So we don't have to fight each other. We don't have to be in competition with each other. All we have to do is find our little block, find our little niche, and we make an impact right where we are, and we'll begin to see a better Jackson. There's one more proposal that I want to mention that I think would be absolutely amazing and awesome for the city of Jackson. Last year, we had a group of developers come to the Hinds County delegation. And what they offered to us was a project to build and open up a casino in downtown Jackson along the Pearl River. Now, when they put the legislation forward, it asked for funding from the state of Mississippi. And we got a lot of pushback from colleagues that were against opening up a casino because they felt like it would be a challenge for the other areas in the state that have casinos. And they didn't want the state of Mississippi to put money towards it. Well, over the summer, actually a few weeks ago, there was a hearing held with those same developers. And so that legislative proposal is going to come back again this year. And what it would do is just amend the language in the law and allow for an additional license to be provided to the city of Jackson. Now, opening up a casino, and I know folks may have some religious concerns about gambling and things like that, but there are, in my opinion, many benefits to opening up a project like this in the city of Jackson because it's bigger than just a casino. What they envisioned was an entertainment center. And so when we think about an entertainment center, we're thinking about things like the Beau Rivage on the coast, a place where you could have shows, conferences, events. The developers even talked about having Cirque du Soleil come in and do shows at this particular facility. So not only are you talking about entertainment, which would continue to improve people's quality of life, because when we heard from Visit Jackson that when they come to the city of Jackson, when visitors are coming here, they're primarily coming here for a cultural experience or for a family experience. Well, you get both of those in one in a project like a casino, but you also get the development of hundreds of jobs, hundreds of good paying jobs that will give our people an opportunity to make an honest living, plus the infrastructure, plus the additional revenue that would go to the city of Jackson to assist us with other projects and other programs and departments within the city of Jackson, like the Jackson Police Department, and planning and development to help us with blight, and parks and recreation to help us with our parks. So it's truly a win-win solution for the city of Jackson. Now I believe we're going to see some folks in the legislature that are going to be, and possibly even outside the legislature, that will be anti this idea. But I would just, ask you to consider this. The city of Jackson needs a shot in the arm. We need something that's going to be an opportunity for us to make some money, to help other folks make some money, and something that will be long-lasting, long-term towards the improvement of the city of Jackson. Oh, the other piece of the legislation would be that there would be a fund created where $10 million would go to that fund every year that can be used for infrastructure improvements across the city of Jackson. That's huge. That's huge. And so keep an eye out on that. And particularly because I know Jackson Advocate has viewers from all across state, all across the country, really. But if you live in Mississippi, you live in a city that has a casino, you may have a state legislator that's a little nervous about this legislation because they don't want it to have an adverse impact on your casino. And I would just say this. I would challenge that by saying that the more, the merrier. And if we can get people to come to the city of Jackson for positive reasons, the old saying says, as Jackson goes, so goes Mississippi. So we've got to do what we can do now to help our capital city, because it is our capital city.